Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back with another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Friday, June 1st, so I checked in. Sometimes Chuck might be the right response, and because of that, we had our end of the month thing. We got the new card back, we'll look at that. We were at rank 19, oddly for the Asian and European account, which brings us back down to rank 23. We only made it up to rank 20 as far as the main account, so we're at rank 24 on that. We need 5 more ranked victories for the entire month to get the card back and get the treasure chest, and that's kind of it. Interestingly enough, we did learn in this experiment, or which I guess it wasn't as much an experiment as more of an event, that being rank 20 gets you 5 dust, 1 golden card in the card back. Being rank 19 gets you 10 dust, 1 golden card in the card back. So it's not really a lot of benefit to struggle to even go 1 rank above. Like, that seems like it's not doing us a lot of favors. On my Asian account, as far as the new cards, we have several bugged new cards apparently. So this was probably the golden card I got. If I disenchanted it, I'd get 50 dust. This is just a bugged card. This is just a bug card, and these are just bug cards. And maybe if I right click all of these, they'll do something, but I doubt it. So another month, another disappointment. I would say it's just they're really not doing anything very helpful for new players. They're not doing anything very nice for people who are playing a reasonable amount, which I think I am playing 3 times a reasonable amount to just do all the daily quests, and all I'm getting for it is a tiny pittance of dust and gold that's enough to buy 50 packs, that's enough to get you started, but not really even half of a full collection on the next expansion. We need to play 100 cards and win Paladin Priest victories. Since victories are going to be the more difficult things, let's start with that. And of course we want to play ranked standard. The dates have locked in as far as my head in E3, so next Saturday, not Saturday tomorrow, but the 9th of July will be E3 is my understanding, and there will be a 1 p.m. I believe Pacific time will be the start of one stream. So I started pretty late tonight, starting past 5 p.m. Central Time. Maybe that first stream gets missed. Maybe I wake up and immediately start streaming and I'm halfway through it. I don't know. In the end, I haven't done any extra work. I've been suffering from just having a really painful, like way more painful clogged ear than I've ever had before. And so I imagine it's just sore and inflamed, and I finally found something that will work. The Debroxis is a medicine that seems to be the only one that works as far as removing wax buildup, which so I'm working on that, but I'm in pain, so I'm not really sleeping at all. It hurts to sleep on one side, it hurts to sleep on the other side, it hurts to sleep face down or on your back. although I don't know anybody that could actually sleep face down. But I bet there's a few people out there. Do I want to kill this guy? Probably. So, I haven't started Borderlands 2. I have been uploading videos and I still have a small amount of Hearthstone videos to upload, and today's stream will certainly add a small amount there too. Just go ahead and take this one. And there's not a huge excuse for it, really. It's just like, well, I did, I guess, also go to the local arts and crafts store working on side projects that don't have anything to do with my YouTube channel, but that really wasn't the reason either. It's just I'm more and more on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. I just don't feel like doing work, and it all derives from a general burnout on top of the fact that I'm spending way too much time playing Hearthstone. I believe that's victory. Also, Netflix came into play, certainly. I watched the entire first season of Lost in Space on Netflix. I enjoyed it quite a lot, and that's saying something, because it's the first PG rated series that I've seen that even for a second seemed like it was worth my time or interesting. It's PG, but it's not just blatant cartoony pandering to a young audience that they can get away with shoving terrible things in front of their
I will fight with
in front of the face of people. Speaking of shoving terrible things in the front of the face of kids, there's a trailer that showed up and then got deleted from Netflix's YouTube channel for a cartoon show that maybe it's a comedy for adults, maybe it's a cartoon for kids, called Super Drag, and I'm kind of thinking it's gonna be like 3 drag queens in this cartoon. That seems like it's, first of all, not really a concept that has much to it, but then there might be a whole story behind it, because it was really only a minute trailer. But it also seems rather odd, and Netflix has been known to do some crazy things. Oddly, there's at least two or three weirdly adult themed and topicked ideas in the form of kids cartoons on Netflix. So it's always been the purview of parents, though, to really keep an eye on what kids are being shown on Netflix, because their sorting system is horrible, and it was always the case that even if they were in the kids mode, there's a decent chance they're going to pull up some anime that is totally not for children. A great example of that is Madoka Magica, which looks very kid-friendly and really isn't, because it is centered directly around the themes of death. Of course, in my day, when I was a kid, there was all kinds of horrible kids entertainment too that was not appropriate. That might be the one area where, if there was any agreement on censorship, I might be willing to turn a blind eye to it. But anyways, I have no reason to really talk about that. Oh yeah, the beginning of Arrested Development, the newest season, also aired, and I watched all those episodes. It's like the first part of a season, and I kind of like the idea of Netflix releasing parts of a season so you can't just marathon too much of it. And it was pretty good. It was a lot better than the previous season, even when they redid the previous season to try to make it be more linear and make more sense.
This is my responsibility. For justice.
But it is also worth mentioning that Arrested Development is a very specific type of comedy that I could understand a lot of people not liking. I think most people should like Arrested Development, but I can certainly get it. Let's start talking about video game news. We've got plenty of it, although I expect a bunch of this since we are in the week before. Since we're in the week before the E3 announcements, I imagine what we'll find is that there's going to be a slightly larger amount of garbage games put out on Steam. So in my continuing effort to train myself to just say this game looks like garbage, we're done, close it, be done in 30 seconds, that today will be a challenge. PC Gamer has an article, Sonic the Hedgehog is getting a movie starring James Madison. Now, I kind of have to assume that a
your magic shall not save you.
I kind of have to assume that a Sonic the Hedgehog game is built around the concept of being for kids. And frankly, there really isn't much of a story to Sonic anyways. It's Dr. Robotnik kills, no, doesn't kill, but kidnaps all the animals of the forest. Sonic is trying to save them. Dr. Robotnik is turning the animals into these horrific monster machines that fight against Sonic. Sonic, for some reason, needs to get all the Chaos Gems. I don't know if he really needed to do that to beat or play the final level in one of the games. I'm not sure if that was the first game that they started doing that. And Sonic collects rings. So, and Sonic is the iconic blue hedgehog too, and so like you've got a lot happening there. It could be like Avatar in a lot of ways, and set on a completely different planet in a completely different environment, and that might help a little bit. And have Sonic become an alien. It would help break away from the reality bending that's happening in the story. Or it could be like a kid-friendly or cute animal saves the forest story, I guess, where there is this either CGI or puppet or whatever that is running around, but almost certainly this is just going to be a cartoon. I don't see how this is adult fare. I don't even think there's that many fans of Sonic. There's vocal fans of Sonic, but if we can't get a good Mario game, and this isn't just a Nintendo bias, I'm just saying, if we can't get a Mario game that makes any sense, I don't think we can get a Sonic game that makes sense. Honestly, you'd be better off making a Zelda game, because Zelda's already set in a fantasy land, and that would work pretty well. It's not as crazy. Moving on, though. PC Gamer has an article, Fox and Forest is a deeply authentic retro platformer. This is kind of a hype advertisement for this game, Fox and Forests, which is now available on Steam. Let's look at it. It's mostly positive at 78% of 19 users.
Let me
It
think.
does definitely look like what I would want if I wanted to play an old platformer type game. I'm not sure I actually do want to play an old platformer game, but it also has some RPG elements. It's nice to see games that are retro games that actually look like they're successes, instead of so often seeing retro games or attempts at retro games just being cheap ways to make your game without putting any graphics in it, and then the games aren't that good anyways. So I've got several articles here, but it's been basically confirmed at this point. The Borderlands Game of the Year edition is coming out for PS4, Xbox One, and PC, which I don't know specifically why it needs to come out on PC. I don't know what the Game of the Year edition does different than the Borderlands 1 I've played on Steam. Is it just a slightly remastered upgrade, some new settings to do it in 4K? As far as the original Borderlands, it was released on PS3 and Xbox 360 and PC in October 2009, so you kind of get the reason why they want this game back on modern consoles, and I guess they didn't want to do backward compatibility, so you see Gearbox is not just going lazy with it, because you could have easily just said, well, it's backward compatible with all the other games. The Handsome Jack collection did include, I think, Borderlands 1, but maybe it didn't. Maybe it only included Borderlands 2 and Borderlands the pre-sequel.
I will fight with
and
honor.
that's what it seems like this article is saying, is that Borderlands 2 and Borderlands the pre-sequel were remastered for PS4 and Xbox One and PC as part of the Borderlands Handsome Collection. The original Borderlands did not receive the same treatment. So I think there is certainly also an argument to make that Borderlands 1 needs to maintain a solid second place in the pantheon of the rating of Borderlands games. We don't want it to feel like it's too old for people to play it, because there's a lot of good content there, whereas Borderlands the pre-sequel, not so much. Like, it's gonna be a real slog. As somebody who's never even played the pre-sequel ones, it's gonna be a bit of a slog to get through it the first time. And I know it's gonna be a slog for me to play Borderlands 2 when I start playing it. This is also confirmation, almost certainly, that Borderlands 3 is gonna get maybe a trailer and a teaser at E3, but this doesn't feel like they're not rushing out a remastered version of Borderlands 1 because they're about to announce Borderlands 2. I mean Borderlands 3. Borderlands 3 is, I don't even know if it's in production at this point. The confirmation here from this Gematsu article is that the Borderlands Game of the Year edition was rated in Korea, but I've seen other articles that pretty much confirms it. Gematsu has an article, Code Vein release date to be announced on June 4th. This is an example of how Japanese announcements go. Like, they are literally announcing an announcement. So watch the trailer on June 4th at 7 p.m. To see the release date of to see the actual release date of Code Vein. If you're interested, there's really way too much hype on Code Vein already. Maybe I should have played this next time. We have somebody on the chat on a Friday, which is great. Matthias Diablo says hi. Hi. Our first game we have is called Rules of Survival on Steam. It says it's a massively multiplayer game, so inherently that already kicks me out. Online purchases is apparently, maybe that's a new in-app purchases, maybe a new tag. $2.99. As best as I can tell, it says Rules of Survival is an action-packed battle royale game. Up to 300 unarmed players parachute into a vast battleground, and you must fight to stay alive. And in the trailer, they're showing off the cleavage of a lady character as she's at every turn.
Your magic shall not save.
So
Repent.
there's some cheesecake in this too. This is clearly a PUBG clone, which, by the way, PUBG is now officially suing Fortnite, and by the way, PUBG has also lost like half of its player base now. This game, Rules of Survival, is made from a developer who has not been heard of. And so normally I'd say the game is not worth your time, but it is rated mostly positive, 72% of 254 players. So I don't know. The issue here is this is the thing that always happened with Battlefield and the first-person shooter games many generations previously, is you were just constantly in a position where if you wanted to play the first-person shooter of the week, you had to actually wait and see where your friends were going and play this. Inherently, I don't think adding a 3 times as many players, so 300 versus 100, does anything. If anything, it just makes it harder to start a game. If anything, I would say maybe 50. Let's see. It is rated mostly positive, but and it's cheap. But I think you'll probably spend way too much time trying to find a match versus actually playing it. And a month from now, I don't think many people would be playing this PUBG clone. Honestly, the next PUBG game will not be a battle royale game at all. The next big thing to hit the zeitgeist of players will be something completely different. The most helpful review says, not recommended port in of the mobile game. It's like playing the game on BlueStacks, which is kind of an emulator for Android games. Let's see. Next not recommended view says, why is a mobile version of a free game on Steam for $3? So a lot of positive reviews, so this is probably some vote manipulation, if I was to guess. And the game does look alright, but it doesn't look special. I think the next, if you're gonna make a new Battle Royale game, you have to go hyper realistic, like best AAA graphics you could ever possibly make.
I must move quickly.
Probably a mistake, but whatever. Gamer Sutra has an article. Fig nabs the blockchain outfit Ownage to help create a new digital publishing platform. I assume that Ownage, which is a UK-based blockchain development company, is going to use the blockchain idea for DRM, which I'm not sure that that's a smart use of your time, frankly. The idea of blockchains and other computers wasting their CPU process to confirm that somebody actually has the rights to play a game seems like a dumb waste of network space, a dumb waste of people's CPU per hour, and it just doesn't seem great. Fig in general seems like it's failing as an attempt to be a replacement for Kickstarter for video games, because there really hasn't been anything other than Psychonauts on there that's caught anybody's attention. Entire games have been released and snuck out, and I wouldn't have even known that the games ever existed. They're not doing anything on Fig to help you advertise or publish your game. They're helping you publish it, but they're not really advertising it. Even press releases don't seem like they're coming out because people like PC Gamer, who write about everything, aren't bothering to write about Fig games. And let's not forget that one of the guys who's running Fig is the guy in charge of Double Fine, who should be running that company and making games, and instead he's wasting some time with this stuff. This is hopefully the last story we'll ever see of somebody buying a blockchain company. Ubisoft is looking for a level designer, a level designer, I suppose, in Montreal, Quebec. If that interests you, check that out. Hearthstone has an article called Managing the Collection Manager, which it lists all of the keywords you can use in the collection manager, which I think I know them all, but it wouldn't kill me to go through them all again. Job's done. Let's see. Apparently you can type health and then a number. You can type in attack and then a number, and then owned and then a number. Let's see, I need to zoom in to make sure I know exactly how you type these. Alright, so it's owned, then health, then a colon, dot over dot, and then a number, attack, colon, health, colon, owned, colon, mana, colon. You can type in the phrase golden in brackets, a lesser than, capital G, OLD, and greater than sign. I don't think you really need to do that, but I imagine if you put it in brackets, then you save yourself some frustration. Let's see, I should have given it to one of these characters.
I must move quickly.
You can search mana, colon, and then in brackets even or odd. So now you can search that way. That's interesting. You can do artist, colon, and then in brackets the name of the artist. You can type in just missing to see the cards you're missing, which you have to be in crafting mode to do that. That's very useful to know missing. You type in extra to see the extra cards you have. You type in new to see new cards. I use new all the time. You can type rarity, colon, and then the type. So you can say, in brackets, rare, epic, or legendary. I imagine you could also type in common. Yeah. For some reason they color-coded everything except for common in that description. Type, colon, in brackets, type. For instance, minion, weapon, hero.
Can escape my fury.
I will fight
Spell,
with honor.
minion, weapon, or hero. Let's see. There is a has search that is HAS colon, then in brackets a word, or maybe not. That will filter your collection to only show cards that contain a specific word or phrase or a combination of letters. Which that seems like that's not super useful. Maybe you would type in has colon pirate in the name, but then couldn't you also just type in the word pirate and search pirate? And that's it. So nothing super new or surprising as far as the keywords, but very useful to know the keywords, and that's the kind of tutorial that doesn't need to be on Hearthstone's website and needs to be actually in the game. It'd be really helpful if there was a help button somewhere around here, just like I don't know what I'm doing, explain this card, let me go into a tutorial mode and highlight some things.
I don't need any of you.
We've got another game on Steam called Ventura Incorporated. Ooh, it looks like garbage. It's early access for $18.99. Let's see, apparently it's an MMO, multiplayer online. It looks like an MMO building cities, and it's the only game from this developer, so that's more than enough things to check to see that there's literally not a single leg to stand on to make me want to play that game. It's got no publisher, it's got no developer clout behind it, it looks horrible. It's too expensive. Gamma Sutra has an article, Beat Saber surpasses 100,000 sales in less than a month. I think Beat Saber deserves its success, and I don't really need to say that, but also it's still very much a weird issue of a game that you can only play on VR, so it's slightly surprising there's even 100,000 people who either own an HTC Vive, a Windows mixed reality device, or an Oculus Rift. That seems like a high number.
Reporting for duty.
I'll hit this guy.
For justice. Guess there's nothing more to really say about the Beat Saber selling that much. Mushroom power.
Okay, so here's a game that's either going to be a controversy game or something that I misinterpreted. It's 15% off for $2.44, 54 cents. And it's called What's My Gender? So I think this is a joke game. It says it's casual nudity, sexual content. And it seems like you're given a group of letters that are mixed up and you're just jumbling letters. into other things, and if you can jumble the letters into a different word, the picture slowly reveals more and more, and it says you can use your own images. So there's phrases like leather pants and honey wine that are getting shown, and then you're having to either either jumbling it, or you're just, it seems almost like you're just typing random things. Okay, so the thing here is that, as far as I can tell, seems to be the main character that's being shown is just a lady, as best as I can tell, in a bikini. And it's like, okay, about the game is, do you lack motivation for learning grammatical genders, or would you like to learn new words just for fun? What's my gender that gives you a total for daily learning? Use 7 minutes of your day to efficiently memorize words. Gadgets will help you learn more difficult words, and game brings a total of 26 revealing images for correct answers.
For justice.
The game's default language for learning is German, Italian, French, and Spanish. You may also create your own additional language packs. So there's no reviews for this game, and there's really nothing offensive here, and so this might be a misunderstanding of a German developer, where it's having you use words in German that would be gendered. So this, I think, actually might be just a language game. Now, my first thought was this was an attack on trans people, that it was, or people that in some other way prefer to not use the standard gender descriptors of he, she, him, her, those descriptors. But I'm not sure that's really what this game is. And I'm fairly certain this game is going to get some controversy around it if anybody ever sees it, which is a big if. But I'm not sure it's supposed to be there. This developer doesn't have anything previously, so I don't know if this is a troll or not. If this is a troll, this is a ultimate, very well done troll. Yeah, this isn't a word jumble game at all. This is write this in this word that's being shown to you in English in German. Well, so it's a weird language game, certainly. You still have to say that. It's a weird language game that's motivating you by showing you pictures of it seems like maybe there's 2 or 3 girls in bikinis, but I don't think this is a gender pronoun game. I don't think this is an insult on that. So I guess I don't really have to go into much of a rant there either. In the end, you can do 1 or 2 things when somebody asks you to use a different gender pronoun than what you expect. You can say yes and be kind to that one person, And since transgendered is literally transgender people are literally people who have a mental problem, and so you're being kind to somebody with a mental disease, disability, that would be the right thing. Or you can say no and you can just be a jerk. So whatever. In the end, I think even if you hate people who cause a bunch of drama and make a big deal about gendered pronouns, I think in the end you can meet them that far and then attack them on something more substantive than what they want to be called. It's kind of just it, as far as I'm concerned, like a nickname. If somebody says my name is Richard, but everybody calls me Bob, you should just call him Bob. It's like, whatever, okay, whatever you want to be called. Give people some little control over their own life, because
I don't have enough mana.
God knows nobody has much of it. That being said, I guess that is also a good time to talk about Total Biscuit. Total Biscuit passed away last week, and so there were two main people that I was keeping an eye on as far as what the responses, what the in memorials would be done for Total Biscuit, John Bain. Total Biscuit is a controversial figure, more controversial than I guess I realized. Seems like at this point, it seems like some of his friends and some of his attitude to always protecting his friends, and his friends are always right, got him into some trouble, where he turned against his audience to support his friends when his friends were in the wrong. And I think inherently the number one friend that did that was Laura Kate Dale, and I think even there's an argument that could be made. Nobody will ever know unless Jenna Bain, Total Biscuit's wife, says something to prove this. I think even Total Biscuit eventually figured out that he should not do anything or relate to Laura Kate Dale, and he did directly, according to Laura Kate Dale, tell her to stop talking to him. But he said it as if I don't want you to get hurt by the association to me, but I think maybe that's just a really nice way to break up with somebody that you're not dating, break up a friendship. So we can quickly cover the Jimquisition podcast, which is Jim Sterling, who was at least friendly with Total Biscuit. I don't know if he actually ever did anything with it. Laura Kate Dale is on that podcast, and then Gab, who really is just a third wheel on that podcast, and I don't think he had anything to do with Total Biscuit at all. So they go through an hour plus before they even mention or hint that they know that Total Biscuit's dead. And it's been a week, and they're talking about things that happened after Total Biscuit died. They get to the end, and then they talk about Total Biscuit's death at the very end. If you're going to talk about somebody's death or such an important story in general at the end of your podcast, you need to have something at the beginning that says we're going to talk about that at the end. They really didn't. So if you were listening to Jimquisition saying, why aren't they talking about Total Biscuit's death? This is a big deal. And you're just like 5 minutes in and you're getting angrier and angrier. And it's like, are they literally never going to mention it? Are they not going to say it at all? like you don't get anything until over an hour and an hour and a half thing. When they start talking about it, they kind of immediately use his death as a jumping off point to talk about themselves, their own depression, their own issues. They really say nothing substantive or nice. You can actually literally quote mine, Jim Sterling, and like his second or third sentence in the conversation at the end of the podcast is that Total Biscuit is a narcissist, was a narcissist, and like a, I don't know the exact phrase, but it was basically headstrong Joe. You know, and so it's like, way to speak ill of the dead. And then they just kind of move on, and they don't cover anything at all. They spend about 5 minutes talking about actual Total Biscuit, and they have nothing really nice to say about him. No stories to share. It's really bad news reporting because they're not saying anything about him anyways, or his career, his life. And it's really bad memorializing because they're not sharing any personal stories or saying anything nice. And I mean, it really just, and then they just go on for another 20 minutes talking about themselves. And inherently, I think that's what SJW's main issue is one, they cave in on each other and fight each other and eventually just destroy themselves because of the infighting. And two, they're just super obsessed about themselves and nothing else. Everything's got to be about them. That's where people's annoyance with having personal pronouns comes from, is that somebody is so obsessed about that they make a big deal. Like, if somebody called me where I go by he, I suppose, if somebody called me she, I probably wouldn't even notice it. Like, I certainly wouldn't make a big deal about it. It would be like 2 weeks of it before I'd even mention it. And even if I was going to mention it, I certainly wouldn't be mentioning it in the public and making a big deal about it. So yeah, with friends like Laura Kate Dell, who already stabbed Total Biscuit in the back with having him interviewed in a Kotaku UK article, and then having her as the editor-in-chief completely disavow him, I think he should have come back swinging a little bit more. But I mean, he was in the middle of dying from cancer at the time, so he just kind of ignored the fact that she didn't really stand up for him much. There is heavy suspicion in one of the controversies that it was Laura Kate Dale that made a big issue and forced, I mean, Total Biscuit was an adult and he could have done whatever, but she forced this manhunt at CoxCon that happened, where somebody asked Jesse Cox, so not even Total Biscuit, in a question and answer panel, the meme question, are traps gay? And the suspicion is Laura Kate Dale said that was transphobic and that she wasn't safe. That's my suspicion, that she was the person that said that, and that pushed Total Biscuit to start a manhunt for this person. They found him and kicked him out and did not refund his ticket for a mean, silly joke, which is no way to treat a paying attendee to your convention, certainly. Inherently, there's bigger problems too, because traps are cross-dressers, and apparently trans people do not like cross-dressers, particularly ones that can pass as the other gender completely. But certainly traps, as my understanding of it, are not trans people at all. So it's kind of transphobic inherently to mislabel a trans person as something they're not. I guess that puts a different spin on that Fox remake of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, where they had a trans woman playing the main character, Dr. Frankenfurter. But that show had problems all over itself. That certainly was an issue, though. In my head, is that they drastically were changing the whole intention and purpose of the story, and not understanding the intent there. Either earlier or later, Jesse Cox had asked the exact same question as a meme, and it seems ridiculous that Jesse Cox would be upset by that question, considering all he ever does when he streams is publish like anime sex games and stream those, and he's all about that. So he's not this super conservative sex negative person. He should have been able to either laugh at the joke and move on, or answer the question pretty easily and move on. You just, you know, make a joke and move on. But that's not what happened, and then I'm not sure. So that's one reason why people didn't like Total Biscuit. And then the other reason, for the most part, that general people didn't like Total Biscuit is if they bought into what I fully believe was a completely false narrative fed by the mainstream video game media, that Gamergate was about harassing people, women, and not about the fact that the woman in question particularly was sleeping with a video game journalist who was writing articles about her game. And so Total Biscuit was one of the few people with any real notoriety to say there should be ethics in games journalism. And then the third reason why people, but mostly game developers, would hate him is because he's a true critic, or he was. And true critics, and I count myself in this, are mostly 100% criticizing things. We don't say too often that things are good, because it doesn't need to be said. If it's good, we might go, alright, that I like that, and move on. But if we're going to criticize something, we're going to go on and on and on. We are very negative people. That's what criticism is. And a lot of people can't take that, certainly. And some game developers had an axe to grind against him, and so they hate him for that. Now, I would argue that there's probably a considerable overlap of people who were video game developers that hated him for Gamergate and hated him for criticizing games and being ethical somewhat, and not even that much. And the co-optional podcast did air, to kind of wrap this up. However, if there are any other controversies with Total Biscuit, I don't know what they would be, but I guess let me know in the comments. I think those are pretty much the three that I keep seeing. And it's really kind of an unfair thing to hate Total Biscuit too much anyways, for for the witch hunt, I think, because I think at that point he was already on chemotherapy, and you could excuse his erratic or hostile behavior just as him mixing a combination of mind-altering chemotherapy and the major amount of pain and frustration that he just was going through at the time too. So you can almost excuse it. Like, he did it, certainly, but in the co-optional podcast they were talking about how he was just in constant pain, and he was on a pain pump that was just, I assume, injecting him with something akin to morphine at all times. That he had previously said that he was having trouble thinking straight, and he'd just get fuzzy brained. So there's a lot of wiggle room there. The Total Biscuit that was healthy before he had cancer very possibly is the best version of Total Biscuit that people wanted and liked. That's mostly speculation on my part, but it's very much seems like that could be the case. So yeah, the co-optional podcast was at least an hour and a half talking all about Total Biscuit. It had Jenna Bain, his wife, his widow, and his friends that are usually on co-optional with no special guest. So Jesse Cox and the girl that just had a baby. I don't remember her name. Apologies if she ever sees this, which she probably won't. And Jesse Cox, for the most part, was very sad and did not say much of anything for fear he was going to burst into tears. Jenna Bain gave a lot of good stories and just talking about it. I think if I'm just going to be critical of a memorial service, which there's really no reason to, that they kind of failed to just do a basic introduction in case this is the first co-optional anybody's seen, where it's like, Total Biscuit was my husband, he was diagnosed with this cancer at this point, it went to stage 4 at this point, he passed away at this point. She did say he died peacefully in his own bed, and he was happy for that. She was talking about how his brain was so messed up that he was having micro dreams and he could not tell the dreams from reality at all, and that often he would have dreams where he's talking in his sleep and criticizing video games, so he was very one-track minded. Jesse Cox kind of talked about how they first met, and I'm not sure the lady actually did, the lady that just had a baby did. They implied at least that they slightly pushed off the announcement of his death for when she was having a baby, so that she wouldn't get the news on Twitter and have extra stress while giving birth. And then there's ever so slight a discussion about how Total Biscuit wanted the co-optional podcast to keep on going, and they're talking like they are going to keep going, but they're also kind of talking like, you know, maybe they won't. It is going to be kind of a weird, different type of thing if Jesse Cox is just in charge of it, because I think Total Biscuit did keep them on track, and I think the two left on their own devices may just go in random directions and just go. And for the most part, they did also mention that Total Biscuit just talked your ear off. He was a very good orator, as it were, and he would just go on and on and on, so he was making a major amount of the content, so you would probably expect the co-optional podcast to to get a little bit shorter. There was a surprising statement, I guess it's up to you to believe or not, saying that the accountant that Total Biscuit had and his wife had at the beginning made huge mistakes apparently, and their house is a threat of being repossessed by the IRS, which that seems like that's crazy. There was talk also of there was a 3-year time in which Total Biscuit couldn't get a visa to come to the United States, even though he'd already married Jenna Bain. So for 3 years they were completely separate, which is way too long. And a sad statement on the United States immigration policy. When a UK citizen who's a celebrity can't get a visa. And I think mainly it was because there was no celebrity esports visa type program, so it looked to the people in charge like a unemployed UK citizen was trying to immigrate into the United States with no job whatsoever or job prospects. There is hints that Jenna Bain will try to be a video game streamer critic and make money that way. I'm uncertain if people really want to watch her or not. What else? She has like a Kickstarter if you want to support her, and I believe the situation is that there's a kid in the picture from some other relationship, so it's not Total Biscuit's son, but there is a child, I believe a boy, in the picture that Jenna Bain is also caring for, if that changes your opinion at all on whether you want to support somebody. I suppose it's a slightly interesting thought to say, if I died as cancer as a small YouTuber, would anybody donate to some kind of Kickstarter or anything? I don't think I'd want people to ask other people for money, but also I don't think I'd really care either if there was somebody that was doing that on my behalf. At least then my life might have served some further purpose or helpfulness. Since my channel is so obviously now not ever going to make a lot of money, nor was that the main first goal, but it was a secondary goal, it's hard to really see any difference there. I'm more concerned if I was to pass on just the investments I've made in games and accounts. Like, if this Hearthstone account just disappeared and nobody ever played it again, that would be a lot of effort down the tube. If the 900 games, it seems like I'm always stuck at 900 games on my Steam account. It seems like every time I get a new one, some fake game gets deleted. And that's crazy. So yeah, that's Total Biscuit. In the end, he died a week ago. I want to be as factual as a news reporter, which is what I consider myself, at least partially. You want to give as much of a factual presentation of the person, and it seems like, yeah, he was a human, and he irritated some people with some of his decisions, and if I was to editorialize, probably made some wrong decisions, but he's hardly a monster and hardly a saint. The only main takeaway I get from this, and it's the thing, is more and more, I don't know if I even need to listen to anything Jim Sterling ever makes, like including the Jimquisition, because it is just this long podcast of ranting, and it's not doing anything. I think people should listen to the Jimquisition of this week and think to yourself, I'm pretty sure I thought Jim Sterling was a friend of Total Biscuit, and I'm pretty sure I thought Laura Kate Dale was a friend of Total Biscuit, and they really did nothing at all. On top of their SJW-ness of having a trigger warning, basically, before they start talking about his death at all, which they only talk about for about 5 minutes. Like, with friends like that, can't even memorialize something. I could BS or at least make up something for my worst enemy just after he's passed, and that's just the thing you do. Sometimes you just lie about the truth in the past, and you make somebody look like they're a good person even if they're a total jerk, and you just, you know, try and make the world seem like it's a better place than it actually is. Well, we're going a little over, so that's why I've stopped. We still got a lot of games to cover and other news, but I figured we'd get Total Biscuit out of the way. Arguably, my own criticism about waiting till the end of a recording that it mentioned him, I also did that. It didn't occur to me. If I scheduled and scripted when and what I was going to talk about, I certainly would have put it at the top. So I'm not completely innocent of that either. That's going to be it for this recording, though. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.